Nia DaCosta's reimagining of 1992's Candyman is a faithful modernization of the cult horror classic. Co-written with Jordan Peele, the film is a fitting tribute to the original, especially by the time it reaches its end. We've got everything you need to fully understand the Candyman conclusion.
Don't say that.
As the urban legend of Candyman goes, if you say his name 5 times in a mirror, he will appear to kill you. In 1992, this seemingly silly legend set the stage for a complex film about race and local mythology in the Cabrini Green housing project in Chicago. Years later, in real life and in the Candyman universe, the housing project has been demolished and replaced by luxury condos. This is how 2021's Candyman begins, as a movie about gentrification. Anthony and Brianna are a black couple who move into a newly rehabilitated building. Anthony is a painter in an artistic rut until he finds inspiration in the legend of Candyman. He learns about the community folklore from William Burke, a local who was a child during the events of the original film. Burke tells Anthony the story of police murdering a black resident whom they believe to be giving candy with razor blades inside to local children. As Anthony starts to create art inspired by the legend of Candyman and the history of racial violence at Cabrini Green, prominent figures in the Chicago art world begin getting brutally murdered. The tension ratchets up after a seemingly innocuous bee sting leads Anthony's hand to start decomposing into a burnt, fleshy monstrosity. He grows increasingly reclusive and distance gathers between him and Brianna. Slowly, Anthony begins to see his reflection for what it really is and realizes that he is becoming the Candyman. At one point in the final act, Anthony visits his mother. In another smart casting decision, the movie brings back Vanessa Williams as Anne Marie, creating a greater sense of continuity with the original. As Burke explains earlier in the film, during the events of the original movie, a woman's child was kidnapped by the Candyman and rescued by Helen Lyle, who lost her life in the process. Any fan of the 1992 cult classic will recognize Williams as that child's mother. The child, then, was Anthony himself. Anne Marie then explains to Anthony that when he returned, she knew, somehow, that he was destined to be the next Candyman. In an attempt to have him grow up normally, she sheltered him from all mention of the legend, but it was all for nothing. His transformation begins immediately after he attempts to summon the murderous figure for the first time. It's not explained extremely well, but it seems that saying the phrase 5 times in the mirror acts not just as a way for the average person to summon Candyman, but as an activation for Anthony to become him.
Be my victim.
Whatever happened when he was kidnapped passed on the Candyman gene, though that's technically not how the lore works. In the past, the violent killing of a black man would often lead to a slew of Candyman murders. In Anne Marie's explanation, it's unclear if there are therefore multiple Candyman with separate origins or if they all fuse into one supernatural entity. William Burke is the most mysterious character in Candyman, and it can be hard to determine his motivations, so let's back up quickly and recap Burke's importance in the movie. Prior to the climax, the last we see of Anthony is him returning to the abandoned neighborhood where he first discovered the art depicting Candyman. When Brianna goes to the laundromat to ask Burke where he might be, she is knocked unconscious and brought to an empty church where she finds Anthony's entire body nearly succumb to rot. Brianna escapes Burke's nightmare church to a house that looks eerily familiar. Eagle-eyed viewers will recognize it from earlier in the film as the first place Anthony sees any mention of Candyman. Burke's history, which is inextricably linked to Anthony's discovery of and evolution into Candyman, is explained through flashbacks that occur sporadically. As a kid, he watched Sherman Fields, a local man who had a hook for a hand, get murdered by police. He later saw Fields come back as Candyman. This flashback confirms Burke's genuine belief in the legend. Burke also knew that Anthony was the baby Candyman had kidnapped, and he waited patiently for decades to help him complete his transformation. In the final moments of the film, several white police officers invade the house and arrest Brianna as she shoots and kills Burke. Anthony's corpse lies next to his as Brianna is forcefully escorted to the back of a cop car. She is threatened by the cop in the driver's seat and promises to tell him everything if he can grant her one strange request. She wants to see herself in the mirror. Brianna then summons Candyman, which seems like an insane decision. But if we follow the logic that Anthony is the new Candyman, it helps explain why she calls upon a murderous ghost in a moment of crisis. She's actually summoning her boyfriend Anthony for help. But there is also one clear thematic reason behind her choice. While Candyman has a history in the series of slaying people indiscriminately, that's starting to change in the 2021 movie. In the evolving Candyman universe, the symbolic figure is beginning to become a vengeful answer to white violence and a protector of the black community. The framing of the legend as the hero instead of the monster adds a powerful layer of commentary to the final scene of Anthony as Candyman brutally executing a group of white cops.
So he's real. Candyman ain't a he. Candyman's the whole damn hive.
The abrupt and cryptic ending to Candyman comes with a final twist that might shed light on how the myth works. During his final rampage, we see Anthony finally embracing his role as Candyman. As his face becomes slowly engulfed by bees, Anthony kills the final police officer. The bees start to dissipate as he walks toward Brianna, revealing that Anthony has been absorbed and consumed by Candyman. The final shot of the movie is of actor Tony Todd's face, which has replaced Anthony's as he growls a closing line.
Hell, everyone. New to the neighborhood.
The final line is a confident mission statement, one that is more metatextual than anything. Candyman is back and possibly here to stay. But the scene also marks the fulfillment of Anthony's destiny to be one with Candyman. As he's consumed by the bees, he becomes, like Sherman Fields and every other Candyman before him, more than just a man. He becomes part of the symbol that is Candyman, represented by Daniel Robitaille, the original Candyman who, lore says, arose in the 1800s. The final shot of Todd is a great homage to the original, but is it a final homage? It leaves us wondering where the franchise can go from here, and whether that emphatic but cryptic proclamation at the very end is Todd passing the torch or saying he is here to stay for another trilogy. Not to crush your hopes for a Candyman cinematic universe, but there are no current plans for a sequel to the 2021 film. However, the ending of Candyman does feel an awful lot like a setup for another movie. The abruptness of the ending shot plays much better as a teaser for a sequel than a wrap on the events of this movie. And looking at the whole movie symbolically, things begin to click into place. It acts as a passing of the torch from Robitaille to Anthony. Todd is in his 60s now, so it makes sense to use this movie as a ceremonial transfer of the Candyman title. Hopefully this means we get a sequel to this new Candyman with Yahya Abdul-Mateen wielding that hook to bloody effect. Of course, it's always a treat to see Tony Todd, even in those terrible 90s sequels, but if Candyman wants to thrive as a franchise, it may be time to let go of the past and pivot to a new Candyman.
Say his name. Candyman.
Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite horror movies and TV shows are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.